Good afternoon, welcome to Interface Table Talk. I'm Francesca and today I'm here with
Megan,
Leander,
and Ilunga.
And we're discussing accessibility issues at JavaUP. We'll introduce the topic, propose a blueprint, and suggest some strategies. So let's get into our discussion. This investigation into accessibility serves as a bridge which connects the interactive experiences explored by the Educuration group and extends them out to the greater social community as expanded on by the Public Engagement group. The project aims to make art accessible to the everyday person. This includes within JavaUP, in other institutions, and within the urban context of Pretoria.
Okay, that sounds ambitious, but what do you really mean by accessible?
The meaning of accessible in the context of our project is that anyone and everyone across the spectrum of society is able to engage through understanding and participation. This means both in a physical and intellectual sense.
So we want to make art accessible, meaning anyone can engage. Does this include me? Who is the everyday person?
Well, initially we intended the everyday person to mean someone who does not have a background in art and feels excluded from it and as though it is not for them. However, this definition in itself becomes a bit problematic and exclusionary. For the purposes of this project, it became necessary to define exactly what we're aiming for.
Is it someone not old enough to understand art?
Is it someone with a physical or mental disability?
Someone with a job in unskilled labor? Someone with more tertiary and or secondary education?
Or maybe it's just everyone.
When asking these questions about which lens to use as a filter for who is and who is not an everyday person, as well as who does accessibility inherently refer to, we need to look at it from a different angle. We can't really tick every box, so then how do we choose which boxes to tick? It's not about ability or disability, but rather it is about diversity.
Where do we even start?
Well, we can start by analyzing the problems and the previously attempted solutions. From there, we can delineate problems that we aim to produce strategies for. The strategies will form a blueprint where they can be applied in other situations, not only to accessibility, but to any problem relating to education or cultural exchange. We will use JavaUP as a testing ground then for the strategies that can be scaled and replicated elsewhere.
Alright, so we're going to solve the problems identified earlier today.
Not exactly solve. A solution implies a definite answer. We are going to use strategies. Design strategies are both analytical and intuitive and are developed through a complex iterative process. Here's a first look at this blueprint that we discussed earlier. It proposes making use of multiple intelligences as a lens to generate strategies to address shortcomings in JavaUP's accessibility. Each flow in the blueprint can be extracted and addressed linearly. The shortcomings identified in JavaUP are analyzed through the lens of one or more intelligences, and the criteria for each informs a strategy. This is then applied to a real-life scenario.
Wait, hold on. I've heard of a theory of multiple intelligences, but what does it have to do with making art accessible?
Well, you'll remember from earlier that epistemic diversity refers to the presence of different knowledge, perspectives, and beliefs. There are so many angles to look at epistemic diversity. For example, cultural traditions, psychological states, personalities, or experiential wisdom. As a lens of analysis, we decided to look at one of many theories of how one perceives the world and acquires knowledge.
The theory of multiple intelligences is based on the research of Dr. Howard Gardner. Gardner defines intelligences as the capacity to solve problems or to fashion products that are valued in one or more cultural settings. One normally uses a combination of several of these, but have distinct ones that stand out. They can use naturalist, body kinesthetic, verbal linguistic, visual spatial, logical mathematical, intrapersonal, interpersonal, or musical intelligence. Each of these has specific characteristics which inform criteria for spatial and curatorial strategies. A naturalist will respond to nature-based design and the ability to analyze cause-effect systems. Body kinesthetic intelligence responds to physical activity and the act of creating with their hands. A verbal linguistic intelligence would appreciate a clear narrative that they can follow, as well as literary references. while a visual spatialist responds to visual stimulation and the division of vertical and horizontal spaces. A logical, mathematical, intelligent person engages well in problem solving and analyzing complex relationships. Intrapersonal intelligence would appreciate a space for inward reflection, a personal outward contribution, and immersive visualization. An individual using interpersonal intelligence responds to solving problems relating to people, discussions, and immersive experiences that allow them to empathize with others. And finally, the musical intelligence means one responds to sound and patterns or rhythms.
Well, okay. I think I get the vision. I know one of my most used intelligences is body kinesthetic. So, would it be right to say that I might be more responsive to an active dance workshop or even doing pottery in order to create something with my hands?
Exactly. That would make the message of the arts so much more accessible to you than purely looking at static art.
So, by mapping and plotting each of our top 3 intelligences and the intersections between us, we can see that some of us prefer self reflection, whereas others might enjoy discussing in a group, much like today's table talk.
This makes a lot of sense. It's quite an interesting psychological exploration, but is this something that designers have actually tried to use in the built environment?
Designers have been documented using multiple intelligences in the built environment, but it is an exploration that hasn't been fully adopted in South Africa. We'll look at the Buchenwald Memorial Exhibition in Germany and the Green Park in the USA that were designed using the concept of multiple intelligences. The memorial exhibition was designed to target the multiple intelligences. It includes audiovisual animations, easily accessible displays, and creates reflection opportunities. With all of these activities, it is able to accommodate the verbal linguistic, visual spatial, musical, logical mathematical, interpersonal, and intrapersonal archetypes. The Green Park in USA is an example of a landscape that begins to engage all 8 of the multiple intelligences within one setting. The mentally stimulating works of art set the whimsical atmosphere for people to feel invited to play. While there is minimal physical interaction, there are plenty of mental stimuli to engage the users.
We will unpack certain precedents to use as inspiration for possible interventions. The multiple intelligences and Guenther's special script are the lenses through which we will analyze their success according to accessibility.
The side nodes that we studied include the Javits UP exhibition spaces, the outdoor stage, and the parking lot, and the boundary separating Javits UP from the community. The multi-scalar interfaces stem from the site nodes. The Javits UP exhibition spaces cater for interfaces that include art individual as well as art group viewers. The parking lot node caters for the interface between the Javits UP building and Linwood Road. The harsh boundary fence addresses the interface between Javits UP institution and the community as a whole.
In the Durban Museum and Art Gallery, there's an interface between the art and the viewers inside the building. The exhibition spills out into the community with the sculptures found on the lawn being at the park opposite the City Hall. This creates a relationship between museum, art gallery, and the street or community.
You'll remember this from the earlier presentation. It highlighted the issues underlined by the curatorial team. Here is the blueprint again, populated with the problems we aim to address and the strategies to address each. We can separate each flow into a linear, complex development of strategy.
The first shortcoming found is the fence as a harsh boundary, and we will look at it through the lens of interpersonal and naturalistic intelligences. The criteria for those would be creating conversation and incorporating the outdoors. To achieve that, the strategy would be to take the arts outside. Tactical urbanism is used as an inspirational tactic to activate the threshold between the Javits UP and the community beyond. It is defined as a form of participatory design wherein public spaces are activated to test certain design ideas on a temporary basis. Seeking feedback further informs and solidifies a more permanent implementation with input from communities and their stakeholders. It is a fast and affordable way to create and test change in the built environment. At a more detailed level, tactical urbanism involves elements like comfortable pavements, curbsides, landscaping, street furniture, and amenities. Placemaking is a powerful concept that goes beyond physical design. It encompasses not only the tangible elements, but also the management, maintenance, and purposeful and continuous activation of spaces. By involving local communities, bonds that hold neighborhoods together are made stronger. Hallo Je Bad is a local example of tactical urbanism that was carried out by the Johannesburg Development Agency in collaboration with the South African Cities Network. The focus was on improving pedestrian mobility in the inner city of Johannesburg, which has never been sufficiently designed for. The primary objective was to experiment with both full and partial pedestrianisation of Ribad Street, a bustling pedestrian route within the city. The project unfolded over a 2-week period, during which various programs and interventions were tested in the streetscape. Permanent signage banners were strategically placed. Short-term installations using pallet wood provided seating and interaction points. Creative road markings were used to enhance the street environment. Hallo Je Bad emphasizes the importance of community involvement in shaping urban spaces and exemplifies how tactical urbanism can address urban challenges, create vibrant streets, and foster a sense of community. In this scenario, the strategy lends itself to a pedestrian-focused narrative, bringing the art out into the parking lot of Javid UP. This creates a way for visitors to meander through the art pieces, leading them straight into the Javid UP. The theme of the outdoor gallery space could be the same as on the inside, so that the narrative experience outside is continued within. Still looking at the fence as a harsh boundary, we can strategize through the lens of visual spatial intelligence. The criteria for that would be visual stimulation and division of space. To achieve that, the strategy would be to break the barrier. Here, the strategy is to break the barrier, meaning that parts of the current fence would be replaced with openable fences. This creates vistas from the street into the Javid UP premises, making the space more visible to the eyes and in turn to the user, maybe even convincing the viewer to enter as to see what is going on. Considering the two previously mentioned strategies in unison, this could be a potential outcome. Tactical urbanism is used as an inspirational tactic to activate the threshold between Javid UP and the community and make it easily accessible. The space can be activated to house an array of activities, including event space for community engagement such as workshops. The stage could be used for body kinesthetic activities. The outdoor gallery space is used to lead viewers into the Javid UP, also creating opportunity for intra and interpersonal reflections. Additionally, related to this scenario is the naturalistic focused reflection garden.
The next shortcoming is that the fence hides Javid UP from the street traffic, and we look at it through the lens of body kinesthetic, musical, intrapersonal, and interpersonal intelligences. The relevant criteria will be allowing a space for creation with your hands, creating patterns, and a personal outward contribution. This can be fulfilled by activating the axis along Linwood Road. The approach involves using the fence as an interface to innovatively engage the public and draw attention to the Javid UP. The fence can be used as a canvas for displaying visitors' artworks, allowing passerbys to get a taste of what the Javid UP has to offer, and create a space for cultural exchange. In turn, it could reach a wider audience and attract people who might not have otherwise visited the center. Using the fence as an interactive element by inviting people to contribute to a collaborative art project, one can create a sense of community, engagement, and participation. Lastly, a visually appealing and thought-provoking fence could become a landmark or talking point in the community, helping to raise awareness of the Arts Center and its mission. In this example, weaving was employed as a temporary installation. This installation can also speak to the current exhibition theme within.
Static art display practices is another shortcoming in the Javid UP and will be looked at through the lenses of visual spatial, verbal linguistic, and logical mathematical intelligences. The criteria is visual stimulation, literary references, and recognizing patterns. The strategy being in, out, in lends itself to reproducing art in alternative formats, distributing it to the community, and bringing it back into the Javid UP. In this strategy, in-out-in, art is replicated and printed onto pieces of paper. The pieces can become pamphlets with information about Javid UP, a scannable QR code, or even a fact or two about the artwork in question. The pieces are then distributed out to the community and hopefully brought back by them, as that is the only way to view the full artwork and not just a piece of it. An interactive activity stems from an outward reflection act provided for the user to leave their mark by placing the piece of paper into place and being able to view the actual artwork. Another way that static artwork display can be addressed is through the lens of body kinesthetic, verbal linguistic, and musical intelligence. The criteria for that would be physical activity, a clear narrative to follow, and incorporating sound. The strategy would be to integrate the senses into the artwork and create an interactive experience. Blind Art is a UK charity founded in 2004 by Sherry Kayami to promote contemporary works by both visually impaired and sighted artists. It aims to prove that sight is not essential to the creation or enjoyment of art. Artist Frances Aviva Blaine, commissioned to exhibit in one of Sherry's exhibitions, created art pieces that people were encouraged to touch, making it a multi-sensory experience of sight as well as touch. This also provides an interaction between body and object and provides an opportunity for reflection in an intrapersonal manner between the user and the art. Taking the precedent into account, we developed two scenarios where the senses become the drivers and enhancers of the exhibition at hand, a complete sensorial experience. Firstly, sound. If the exhibition is curated with sound or music as enhancer to the content of artwork, then the experience will become an immersive one. Similarly, enhancing an exhibition with a sense of touch or feeling, for example, blowing cold air into a space when the artwork relates to that cold, hostile feeling, it will enhance the overall experience of the exhibition.
The wheelchair users are segregated from the traditional path through the galleries. Visual, spatial, and interpersonal intelligences inform the criteria of division of vertical and horizontal spaces and an empathetic, immersive experience. The strategy will be to design an alternative path. In this scenario, we integrate and prioritize the wheelchair user. The idea is to use the wheelchair path as the driver behind the narrative of the exhibition curation. This will mean that there is very little segregation between able-bodied individuals and those using wheelchairs.
The next shortcoming we investigated occurred in an exhibition we would classify in Phase B of the ABC model we discussed in the previous session. Though very engaging aspects were included, due to the lack of clear directions, visitors don't know exactly what they should or can do. The lenses of body kinesthetic, interpersonal, and intrapersonal intelligences inform the criteria of creating a space for physical activity, discussion, and personal outward contribution. And to achieve that, the strategy is active contribution. In this scenario, viewers are given the opportunity to observe the artwork and then to reflect by creating a piece of art themselves. This act of making can be designed to reenact the process the artist took to create the art, or can be used as a reflection to the content.
The final shortcoming we are addressing is visitors arriving in large groups, making some people not get a chance to reach the art viewer interface. Looking through the lenses interpersonal and intrapersonal, the criteria will be to create discussions and inward reflection space by designing the exhibition so that it can be experienced from different start and end points with multiple narratives. Multiple narratives for the same exhibition can lead to interpersonal conversation as well as multiple viewpoints from which to view exhibition at hand.
These are the scenarios that were suggested, and now we can assess the success of each.
Upon assessing strategy 1, taking art outside, the pros and cons were drawn up. The pros are that Javid UP will gain more exposure, and the barrier is blurred between the art center and the public. The con is that the art may be damaged outside because of the elements or vandalism. The pros of strategy 2, addressing breaking the barrier, are that there will be public exposure and the barrier will become a threshold. The cons are that the removal of the fence causes safety issues and there may also not always be enough funds to host events. Strategy 3, access activation of Linwood Road from University Road intersection to Roper Street will increase attention from the street towards Javed UP. The cons are vandalism, durability of the displays, and that it requires university approval to be implemented. Strategy 4, in-out-in's pros upon assessment are that the audience get to interact with the art and it becomes an information tool for Javed UP exhibitions. The cons are the art may be devalued by being overly accessible, and there might be a disregard for motivation to participate in building the puzzle. Strategy 5 is integrating the senses, and the pros are that it will create an immersive experience. The cons are that this strategy requires extra work for the curatorial team, and it requires informants from the artist for the audience to be immersed in the experience better. The pros of Strategy 6, alternative path, were that the users experience the same narrative if it's applied, and it prioritizes people with disabilities. The con for the strategy is spatial limitation if there are large groups of people circulating through the exhibition. The pros for Strategy 7 for active contribution are that there's engagement with the public, and Javed UP gets feedback from public which creates conversation. The cons are that the user needs clear instruction, and for it to work, it relies on the audience's participation. Finally, Strategy 8, multiple narratives, was assessed, and the pros for the strategy include that there will be a controlled group size and different enriched experiences for each user. The cons, though, are that there will be a crowded circulation space, segregation, and takeaways from the exhibitions may be vastly different.
So let's circle back to our original intention for this table talk today, which was to make art accessible to the everyday person by use of the multiple intelligences as a lens to generate strategies.
I really do believe that we are onto something with this.
I think our original blueprint can do with some development, just as Brian Lawson predicted it would. The scenarios, once developed, should be assessed, and the strategies iterated until the most optimal ones can be achieved. I also think this blueprint can become a multi-directional process in which you can either use it as we have, or start by analyzing a scenario, extracting the strategy used and criteria fulfilled in order to identify which multiple intelligence was targeted and in turn which problems are avoided or solved.
All in all, I think this is a great blueprint which can make an art accessible to the everyday person on multi-scalar interfaces at Javed UP and other institutions.
Absolutely. Well, guys, that's all we have time for today. We'll pick up again next week.
It was great being here.
Thank you all.